Look, Smithers, a twitch. It's moving. It's alive. Yes, it's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive.
A message from the false advertising industry.
We've successfully used the word natural to sell billions of dollars of product that nobody would otherwise eat. Foods that have been fertilized in sewage, food products that have been processed beyond all recognition. And by adding the word natural to genetically modified organisms, we're doing God's work. Literally. I mean, we are claiming all these life forms that he or she never had the foresight to create. And we're making sure that people think of them as natural. And it feels good. It feels good. Can I just, give me 1 second? I promised myself I wasn't going to do this. All right, can we just cut for a second? Are we cut?
We're cut.
Good. Do you think they bought it?
Congratulations, boys. You made it through another Taco Tuesday. Back in the bucket till next week.
Won't those vegetables go bad?
Nope, they're genetically modified to stay fresh. Just don't ask how old the Jell-O is.
Ew. Overreactor.org warns that over half of the vegetables sold in this country are genetically modified organisms whose effect on humans is unknown.
After Leonardo DiCaprio investing in cultivated meat startups, we're talking about Mosa Meat and Aleph Farms. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. He's also going to be joining the advisory boards of both companies. And of course, Leonardo DiCaprio has long been a very, very active or vocal climate activist, we should say. This is part of, that thesis that he's been pushing for, lowering or reducing the carbon footprint, greenhouse gas emissions. And I know, Zach, I think people hear cultivated meat, lab-grown meat. It doesn't sound very appealing. I don't know if that's more appealing than plant-based meat, but the reality is this is kind of where the market is going, just given the footprint that we've seen. Dairy and meat combined, accounting for about 14.5% of global greenhouse gas emissions, at least according to numbers out from the UN. And some would argue that's just not sustainable anymore.
Yeah, you cover our kind of climate front here for us, Yahoo Finance Live. If there was a meat reporter here at Kiko, I guess it'd have to be me. Because, I'm a big meat fan, and we talked about this in the morning meeting, just very different. You can talk about plant-based, lab-grown meat, obviously not the same. It might appeal. It all comes down to taste. It might appeal more so to maybe, conscious carnivores out there. But I still think there will probably be, regardless of price and pricing pressures there, as that comes down, or that's the belief that it'll come down, there'll still be people who just prefer the old-fashioned, real deal, came from a cow meat, or came from whatever animal meat. And I think that might just be, something that it shakes out over time relative to price and comfortability. But I mean, speaking of DiCaprio here, we've seen him invest in a few of these lab-grown companies before, even on the diamond side, came out really against the idea of mining diamonds in Africa, invested in a few companies, Diamond Foundry being the big one that he's invested in. So the idea of lab-grown anything, not foreign to DiCaprio. Interesting to see him, though, double down in the meat space.
Maybe they can change the branding a little. Lab-grown anything just doesn't sound appealing. In full disclosure, I do eat meat, so I'm not anti-meat. It's just when you look at the numbers, it's just not sustainable. And here's a number to throw out here. Global meat consumption expected to grow 40 to 70% by 2050. The cultivated meat market, and this is according to numbers provided by these companies, expected to reach $25 billion by 2030. And we were just showing some other companies on our screen that are in this space. We're not just talking about meat. There's a company called Finless Foods that is doing cell-grown seafood, lab-grown seafood. So, I mean, there's a lot of innovation happening in this space, and all of that is dictated by the market and where things are moving as a result of climate change.
Blah, blah, blah. Build back better. Blah, blah, blah. Green economy. Blah, blah, blah.
There were lots of questions that came in regarding GMOs. A lot of people want to know how you balance the opportunity to address food scarcity with the concerns that many have around GMOs.
Right, so genetically modified organisms, that's where you create a new seed by using some biological approach that changes the gene. One example is you can put a gene in that prevents the plant from getting disease. And so a disease that's wiping out the crops of poor people and causing tens of thousands to starve, you can get rid of that. The techniques we're using here were actually invented for human medicine. And in the case of human medicine, we don't have a total ban on all drugs that are created this way, nor do we have a total acceptance. What we do is each drug gets created, it's trialed, and then each country has scientists who look at, okay, what are the benefits and what are the risks of that new drug, and they decide. And it's a very sophisticated system that's trying to maximize human welfare. For plants, it's going to be the same. That is, to a priori say, no, we don't want that seed that blocks disease, that's dooming the poorest to never have this kind of tool. And it'd be ironic, since many of these advances are creating things like drought tolerance that poor people only need because rich people have been emitting so much CO2 that the climate conditions are worse for those poor people. Now, making sure that there's that scientific depth so that they can analyze crop by crop, that's something that the foundation is helping to invest in, but each country will have its own decisions. And there are in the pipeline some fantastic crops that need to be looked at. We have decades of experience where rich countries have used GMOs. Some countries like South Africa, Burkina Faso, Egypt are using some GMOs right now. But the big wins are ones that come later, and each of those should be looked at as a special case, not ruled out or ruled in based on the general perception.
Hey, pizza!
All right, just wait.
When it's ready, could you just shove it in my mouth?
Don't you be a smart ass.
I'll crank the atrocity channel.
Hydrate level 4, please.
Ooh. Is it ready?
Here you go.
Oh boy, Mom, you sure can hydrate a pizza. No, I'm sorry, I missed that whole thing.
Al, I'm just worried about Jennifer. Why isn't she home yet?
I'm not sure where Jennifer is, Mom. Should have been home hours ago, but I'm having a hard time keeping track
fruit.
these days.
Fruit, please. Thank you.
Aren't you and Jennifer getting along?
Oh, yeah, great, Mom. We're like a couple of teenagers,
Dad, telephone, it's needles.
Dad, it's for you.
All right, well, take down the den. Excuse me.
Track.
I'm trying the world's first lab-grown fish maw. It's a little bit mushy, almost like a sponge. It's cultivated in a lab from fish cells by Hong Kong-based food tech startup Avant Meats. Fish maw is the swim bladder of large fish like croaker. It's a delicacy in Chinese cuisine, and it's believed to have many health benefits.
花膠本身咧，佢係好高蛋白質啦，咁其實係對皮膚好好啦，好有 collagen 啦。
High-quality fish maw can sell for thousands of dollars a pound. But the demand for seafood has led to overfishing and driven some marine species to the brink of extinction. Fish farming, or aquaculture, has been touted as a solution to overfishing, but it can have harmful environmental consequences such as ocean pollution. Companies like Avant Meats want to solve these problems with cultivated fish. The company also makes cell-based fish fillets.
This lab-grown meat is made from grouper. The texture is a little bit different than fish normally would be. It's not quite as flaky. I'm pretty squeamish about eating any kind of animal. I was a vegetarian for 10 years, but knowing that this wasn't an actual fish, I actually feel okay eating it. Avant Meats is still developing its products, but it plans to start selling them sometime in 2022.
Looking at Soylent Green all natural crackers. Down below, People Food. Of course, we've got some hands going on down below there. Soylent Green. Anybody seen the movie? For those who haven't, definitely go and check it out. Charlton Heston, great movie. Here we've got these Soylent Green all natural crackers. Again, made with high energy plankton. On the side, we at the Soylent Corporation know that in 2022, nothing runs anymore and nothing works. But the people are the same and need the same things. We are committed to getting you, the people, what you need the most. Soylent Green.
And giving it back to you, the people.
And we give it back to you, the people.
You don't need to raise an animal and slaughter it to get the muscle that makes our meat. We can take cells from an animal and then grow them without the animal itself. The only way for me to make sure that they eat the same type of diet that I did, the same chicken schnitzel that my mother used to make, is to make sure we fundamentally change the way we make food. Culture Meat starts with a simple process of taking cells from animals. We obtain the cells, we immortalize them, essentially allow them to start growing forever in a nutrient growth. From that bioreactor, you get the mass of muscle cells and fat cells that give you the experience of meat without slaughtering an animal, without causing the harm. We can produce meat that is as delicious and as healthy, even better, than traditional meat. Very soon, farmers and producers all around the world would understand that if they use our technology, they can produce the same meat for a fraction of the cost, much faster and much more efficiently than ever before.
GMOs have now been a staple in American diets for 20 years, yet most Americans still don't know what they are or how they affect our food supply. Do you know what a GMO is?
No.
A GMO. What's a GMO?
I know it stands for genetically modified organism. Is that it? GMO? I think so.
I always ask myself, like, what the heck is that? And I still have no idea.
Dr. Robert Fraley was one of the original creators of GMOs for Monsanto in the early 90s, which has now turned into the largest manufacturer of GMO seeds and Roundup, a controversial weed killer for crops. Today, GMOs account for nearly 80% of conventional processed food. Do you think we're overdoing it with GMOs?
Well, you know, it's a little bit more complicated, and sometimes it's confusing because, you know, on the one hand, I'd say almost everything we eat has been genetically modified.
But many non-GMO activists disagree, saying GMOs were created solely for profit.
Almost all of the GMOs that are on the market today have been engineered to do one thing, and that is to survive when sprayed with a chemical herbicide. So the primary herbicide that they've been engineered to be used with is glyphosate. Glyphosate, just this year, the World Health Organization classified it as a probable carcinogen. So most GMO foods that you eat have been sprayed by a chemical that's likely to cause cancer.
What do you say about that?
I say it's absolutely untrue. So glyphosate is the active ingredient in Roundup, and probably most people have used Roundup to control weeds in their garden. Roundup is absolutely safe, and it's not a carcinogen. And the regulatory agencies who have the responsibility for regulating it, like the EPA, like the Canadian regulatory authorities, the authorities in Europe, have all studied glyphosate extensively and concluded that it's non-carcinogenic.
Megan Westgate, director of the nonprofit The Non-GMO Project, says biotech companies get away with it because they have power and money.
One of the biggest concerns that I have is that the top 3 biotech companies now own almost half of the world's seed supply. That's a lot of control for just a few corporations to have over something that every single human being depends upon for their survival.
So you feel comfortable with eating GMOs all day long, feeding it to your family? There's no concerns that you personally have?
Absolutely. I'm a dad. I've got 3 kids. As a scientist, I've looked at all the studies and data. As a dad, I've thought about it.
Fraley says his only regret is not educating consumers sooner, and is now trying to change that.
I'm personally involved in Twitter. You can follow me at Rob Fraley and follow that. As a company, we've voluntarily published our data and our science and increased dramatically the transparency.
I'm Jade Scipione for FoxBusiness.com.
Get a world away from the everyday with new Swanson International Dinners. German, Chinese, Italian, Mexican style.
They take you away from the everyday to a world where the food makes you want to stay.
Those real sensational
international frozen dinners from Swanson.
German style, a generous helping of sauerbraten, spätzles, and Bavarian cabbage. Chinese style, chicken chow mein and fried shrimp. Italian style, lasagna with meat and cheese, tortoni pudding. Mexican style, with a beef enchilada and tamales in the fiesta meaty sauce. Get a world away from the everyday with
these real sensational
international
frozen dinners from Swanson.
So our vision is you can have a small, we call it a bioreactor, but it's a fancy name for a pressure cooker, honestly, like your bread maker or something like that can maintain temperature and right conditions for your cells and your nutrient solution. And at the end of a couple of weeks, you can grow your own meat for your own family. It's kind of like this miracle cell of sorts that can form everything in your body, but it needs the right trigger to make that happen. So we essentially feed them with a liquid nutrient, a mix of proteins, carbohydrates, fats, very similar to what the animal would eat itself. But because the cells don't have a digestive system, you have to give them a very simple ingredient mix. Like I mentioned, meat is grown in this liquid. Right now, that ingredient, I call it soup, nutrient soup, is only made by pharmaceutical companies.
Bill Gates has been snatching up 242,000 acres of farmland across the U.S., enough to make him the top private farmland owner in America. According to the Land Report, the tech billionaire has been purchasing agricultural land for years, building a massive portfolio of farmland in 18 states. His largest holdings are more than 69,000 acres in Louisiana, almost 48,000 acres in Arkansas, and about 20,500 acres in Nebraska. Additionally, he has a stake in 25,750 acres of traditional land in Phoenix, Arizona, which is being developed as a new suburb. It's not clear how Gates' farmland is being used or whether any of the land is being set aside for conservation. This is not Gates' only foray into agriculture. In 2008, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation announced $306 million in grants to promote high-yield, sustainable agriculture among farmers in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. The foundation also invested in the development of supercrops resistant to climate change and higher-yield dairy cows.
Ladies, one reason you can always trust a Swanson frozen dinner, it rounds the hungry edge of appetite nobly well. Or as some of my more blunt brethren might say, it satisfies. A case in point, Swanson's turkey dinner. First the entree, prized poultry, expressed in succulent slices of white and dark meat, mantled in rich brown gravy and tastefully enhanced with Pepperidge Farm dressing. And now behold the glorified superwhip potatoes, richly regaled in butter. In the next neighborly compartment a plentiful portion of peas, also bathed in butter sauce. And to complete our royal repast, a tantalizing extra, tangy sweet cranberry sauce. Aha, you say, but aren't there others? None that even remotely approaches this. So take my word for it, ladies. Trust Swanson.
Would you eat your favourite takeaway if it was made in a laboratory? The thought of 3D printed nuggets might not sound appetising, but scientists say you won't be able to taste the difference.
There's only one Kentucky Fried Chicken, always cooked fresh, with Colonel Sanders' original secret recipe of 11 different herbs and spices.
Until now. For in this Russian lab, your next tasty KFC meal is being prepared. Just finishing off some seafood for another customer first. This one is a squid. Yes, KFC has partnered with Russian scientists to develop lab-made chicken nuggets.
Shut up and take my money.
Hot on the heels of fake meat, now comes a plethora of pantry palatables.
Spinach, broccoli, chicken, salmon, kind of just runs the gamut. We were experimenting with a lot of new ingredients as well.
Welcome to the future.
Your printable food comes safely packaged in cartridges.
Finger licking good.
I suppose a laboratory and a kitchen, as long as it's clean.
Wouldn't put you off? Simply take some cells from a real chicken, multiply them in the lab into a paste, and gently place that into a printer, similar to the one in your home office. Turn that paste into sheets, and layer upon layer, turn those sheets into cubes. Presto! You've got chicken nuggets.
I'm going to go get some KFC nuggets.
Stand around a KFC long enough like I did today, and you'll learn.
Would you eat them if they were made in a lab?
Yeah. I don't see why not, no.
People aren't put off by it.
Yeah, I would.
If they tasted the same, what's the difference?
You wouldn't know, you wouldn't be able to tell. Personally, I'd probably prefer it.
Well, Joanna, I'm guessing you've never had one of those.
No, I haven't.
Joanna McMillan is a nutritional scientist.
Why are we making food in a lab now?
Well, we have two big problems. One is environmental and sustainability kind of issues. And the second is creating enough meat to feed the world's growing population.
Would there be nutritional value in something that's made in a lab?
Well, no, there's not. And that's what's a little frustrating for me, is why don't we think about recreating meat in the lab, but also make it healthier? And that's what's not happening.
There's no substitute for real chicken.
Adam Stratton is a proud old-fashioned butcher. You remember the ones who used to cut up, not create, meat.
There'd be a difference in texture, the taste, and, like natural. How can you go past natural products?
He won't be finger-licking, and I also suspect an old colonel might be turning in his grave.
Good chicken.
Next, they'll be telling us those yummy crab sticks aren't... Oh, hold on a second.
Whether or not they make it in a lab or not doesn't bother me.
You'd still eat it?
Yeah.
Ah, the holidays. That magical time of year is upon us once again. If you're like 99% of American families, you'll be bringing Kraft foods into your home this holiday season. And by doing so, you'll also be taking part in the largest genetically engineered food experiment in history. That's right. Kraft is using ingredients genetically engineered in a laboratory. They're serving up new and inadequately tested combinations of DNA never before eaten by human beings, posing risks to our health such as new allergies, new toxins, and antibiotic resistance. And that's why Kraft counts on you and your family to help them determine the health effects of eating virtually unregulated genetically engineered foods. This method of product safety testing is a favorite of Kraft's parent company, tobacco giant Philip Morris. The truth is, Kraft really doesn't know what genetically engineered products will do to us.
This is Climate Day here at the White House, but as you said, Joe Biden also framed this as Jobs Day, because they say this is not just about clean air and clean water, but this is also about creating jobs, good, clean energy jobs. It was a point that several officials today were really emphasizing. So just a couple bullet points on what these executive orders do that the president signed today. One is that it's going to freeze new oil and gas leasing on federal lands. That was something that Biden promised on the campaign trail. He's directing the federal government to purchase electric vehicles that the government would use in its massive fleet. He's looking to establish a civilian climate corps. That was something we heard today from John Kerry and from Gina McCarthy, who's going to be his domestic climate advisor. It's also going to set a goal of conserving at least 30% of the country's lands and oceans, directing federal agencies to look at the impact that the climate is having on disadvantaged communities, and would also put 40% of relevant federal investment towards those disadvantaged areas. So that is something that they say is so critical to address, because this is beyond just an environmental issue. This is a health issue. And we heard President Biden say today that for all of the talk about the COVID crisis, this is another health crisis, kind of a more quiet, long-lasting, long-term crisis that his administration says they have to tackle.
It is a complete lie, and any real scientist will tell you that climate change is just nothing but nonsense. It is not real science, and that it has been disproven many times, and that NASA and the Luciferian scientific community are fudging the numbers in order to promote their nonsense. And you'll remember the good old 2015 United Nations Climate Change Conference that took place back in November and December of 2015. And what I found quite interesting about this conference, to me, it was a bunch of Luciferians all getting together to ratify this thing. But, what was hung on the Eiffel Tower, this big ball kind of structure that was put in, hanging right basically in this section of the Eiffel Tower. But what can you see right in your face right there? You've got the good old all-seeing eye on top of the pyramid, and it's saying Earth Crisis. They are completely showing you that this is Luciferian to the core. This is none other than the New World Order trying to rise up, trying to push their same Luciferian Mother Earth worship nonsense onto the people of this world. And they are just fooling people into believing that the climate is changing, that we are responsible for it, and that if we don't do something, we're all going to die. But really, it is just a farce. They are totally pushing this whole climate change nonsense. Of course, you got the good old pagan beads there that they're using. They're showing the Catholic pagan doctrine and all this kind of thing that is going on here. And really, Pope Francis is one of the key figures in this whole climate change. They are Luciferians. They are Gaia worshippers. They worship Isis. They worship Horus. They worship Set. They worship Tammuz. They worship Nimrod. Okay, they worship the beast. They worship the dragon. These people are not to be trusted. And sadly, just as the Bible says that Lucifer masquerades as an angel of light, so people think this man is very innocent. But really, the Roman Catholic Church, to me, in my mind, is Mystery Babylon. They are propagating all of this nonsense and bringing about all this false kind of stuff all over the place. I believe that the Jesuits are also responsible for the teachings of evolution, for the teachings of the globe, for the teachings of even dinosaurs and many other things that have come from these Jesuits, and even the aliens, and how Pope Francis openly says that he'll baptize aliens. And now, of course, they're propagating this climate change, and he's put out even an encyclical to the Catholic world to go along with this climate change. And, when he came to the U.S. A couple of years ago in 2015, you would think that if he's a servant of Yeshua, that he would talk about getting saved. He would talk about salvation. But no, one of his main concerns was addressing climate change.
Honesty, courage and responsibility, three qualities the Pope says he wants everyone on Earth to show in the battle against climate change. As he publishes a 192-page letter ostensibly to bishops, in which he says humans are ruining their own home with global warming. For more, I'm joined from St Peter's Square by our correspondent Philip Willen. Thanks very much for joining us. Philip, tell us a little bit more about what the Pope's been saying and why he's saying it now.
Well, the Pope has tackled his critics head on. He's come out very clearly to say that climate change deniers are wrong, and the science shows that human activity is contributing to global warming. And he also comes out very strongly to say that we need not only to worry about nature and animals that we share the earth with, but also we need to worry about the poorest of humanity. We can't allow them to be left behind. They're the people who pollute least, but suffer the consequences of pollution most. So the people who've accused the Pope of being a Marxist are also tackled head-on in this papal document.
He may not be a Marxist, but he's certainly more than willing to comment publicly on political issues. He's been addressing his comments really to the world's richest countries.
That's absolutely right, and it's clear in this document as well that he's preaching not only to the world's 1.2 billion Catholics and to other believers in religious faith, but he's also speaking to the world's public at large. He says that religions, not only Christianity, have a contribution to make to this debate. And he enters the debate very forcefully, but also respectfully of other opinions, saying there's a dialogue that must go forward. So a very important document from the Pope, the first that he's written entirely on his own, and in a sense a manifesto of his entire papacy.
Calling on the world's faithful to join the fight to solve the climate crisis. 40 religious leaders gathered at the Vatican on Monday to add their voice to the growing chorus calling for world leaders to take real action to tackle the crisis. The Catholic Pope, Pope Francis, called the meeting but preferred to let others speak.
I call on all young people, regardless of their religion, to be ready to fight against any action that may damage the environment or increase the climate crisis.
The meeting was labeled Faith and Science, and many spoke of the need to fuse our rational and spiritual sides.
Together, faith and science, people of different faith can transform fear in hope, anxiety in confidence, inaction into action.
Others highlighted the responsibility religion confers on humanity.
That the water is the father, the air is the teacher, and earth is our common mother. Just as we don't dishonor our mother, father, and teacher, why would we dishonor these gifts from our Creator?
We must address the unequal economic systems and the human impacts of climate change.
Though they aren't political leaders, the president of the upcoming UN Environmental Conference says they have an important role.
There is a very unique voice that religious leaders have when they talk to other world leaders, the leaders of governments, and that, I think, is what now needs to happen. For that voice from the religious world, from the scientific world, to be amplified, to tell world leaders they have to act to protect our planet and our people.
Throughout his papacy, Pope Francis has supported environmental action. In 2015, he published his second encyclical, Laudato Si', in which he called for swift and bold action to tackle the climate crisis.
Last week, he virtually attended the Youth for Climate conference in Milan, backing the work of 400 young delegates as they drafted proposals for the UN summit. Meanwhile, outside conferences, a growing protest movement is adding its own pressure. A consensus has been building that real action must come out of the Scotland summit. And to that, we now have the support of the world's leading spiritual figures. Adam Rainey, Al Jazeera, Vatican City.
Good old David Rockefeller, another well-known Luciferian and New World Order person who says, has been quoted as saying, all we need is the right major crisis and the nations will accept the New World Order. And that's right from the mouth of David Rockefeller.
New World Order. A new world order.
A new world order. New world order. New world order.
A new world order.
A new world order.
New world order.
New world order.
And a new world order.
A new world order.
New world order.
New world order.
New world order.
A new world order. Need for a new world order.
A new world order.
He openly talks about having a one world government. He openly spoke about having a major crisis. So could it be that the major crisis that is coming will be one of the big steps to depopulation?
To the biosphere we live in. And herein lies the dilemma that we all face. Let me illustrate. Improved public health has caused the world's infant mortality rate to decline by 60% over the last 40 years. In the same period, the world's average life expectancy has increased from 46 years in 1950s to 63 years today. This is a development which, as individuals, we can only applaud. However, the result of these positive measures is a world population that has risen during the same short period of time geometrically to almost 6 billion people and could easily exceed 8 billion by the year 2020. The negative impact of population growth on all of our planetary ecosystems is becoming appallingly evident. Growing exploitation of the world's supply of energy and water is a matter of deep concern, and the toxic byproducts of widespread industrialization have increased atmospheric pollution to dangerous levels. Unless nations will agree to work together to tackle these cross-border challenges posed by population growth, overconsumption of resources, and environmental degradation, the prospects for a decent life on our planet will be threatened. The recent UN meeting in Cairo is appropriately focused on one of these key issues, population growth. But the controversies which have erupted at the conference illustrate the problem of coming to grips with issues that are deeply divisive and which have a profound moral dimension. The United Nations can and should play an essential role in helping the world find a satisfactory way of stabilizing world population and stimulating economic development in a manner that is sensitive to religious and moral considerations. Economic growth is, of course, an inevitable corollary of a growing population and is essential to improve standards of living. But without careful coordination, unrestrained economic growth poses further threats to our environment. This was a major subject of discussion at the conference in Rio de Janeiro on the environment 2 years ago. The focus then was on sustainable growth and global development. It was pointed out at the conference that growth is most efficiently managed by the private sector.
Just like what is seen in the Georgia Guidestones, just as what all of these Luciferians love to promote, they all think they're going to have their golden age, that they're going to be the ones that repopulate, or they're going to be the ones that rule this world. They have been lied to by Lucifer, by the devil, and they have fallen for his lie. They think that he is the light, but he is just not. But again, like I said, or as David Rockefeller has said, they want their major crisis. Possibly that will be a major depopulation event that will usher in the New World Order.
For yourself endangers the common good. Body contact causes suffering. Facial expression is excessive. Solitary confinement is safe. Minding your health is excessive. Closeness is dangerous. Sterility is essential. Aloneness is the answer. Restrictions are freedom. Restrictions are freedom. freedom. Restrictions are freedom. The government is your family. The new normal is here. Pharmaceutical companies love you. Everyone loves the pharmaceutical companies. Vaccination is charity.
Google. Ordering a pizza in 2022. Caller. Is this Pizza Hut? Google. No sir, it's Google Pizza. Caller. I must have dialed the wrong number, sorry. Google. No sir, Google bought Pizza Hut last month. Caller. Okay, I would like to order a pizza. Google. Do you want your usual, sir? Caller. My usual? You know me? Google. According to our calorie datasheet, the last 12 times you called you ordered an extra large pizza with 3 cheeses, sausage, pepperoni, mushrooms and meatballs on the thick crust. Caller. Super. That's what I'll have. Google. May I suggest that this time you order a pizza with ricotta, arugula, sun-dried tomatoes and olives on a whole wheat gluten-free thin crust? Caller. What? I don't want a vegetarian pizza. Google. Your cholesterol is not good, sir. Caller. How the hell do you know that? Google. Well, we cross-reference your home phone number with your medical records. We have the result of your blood tests for the last 7 years. Caller. Okay, but I do not want your rotten vegetarian pizza. I already take medication for my cholesterol. Google. Excuse me, sir, but you have not taken your medication regularly. According to our database, you purchased only a box of 30 cholesterol tablets once at Lloyd's Pharmacy 4 months ago. Caller. I bought more from another pharmacy. Google. That doesn't show on your credit card statement. Caller. I paid in cash. Google. But you did not withdraw enough cash according to your bank statement. Caller. I have other sources of cash. Google. That doesn't show on your latest tax returns, unless you bought them using an undeclared income source, which is against the law. Caller. What the heck? Google. I'm sorry, sir. We use such information only with the sole intention of helping you. Caller. Enough already. I'm sick to death of Google, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp and all the others. I'm going to an island without the internet, TV, where there is no phone service and no one to watch me or spy on me. Google. I understand, sir, but you need to renew your passport first. It expired 6 weeks ago.
What are you doing with the rest of your life?
Catching up on some me time, find God.
My soul loves Jesus. My soul loves Jesus. My soul loves Jesus. Bless his name. My soul, it loves Jesus. Oh, yes it does. Oh, yes it does. Oh, yeah, my soul. My soul. Over in the midnight hour, my soul. He speaks to my soul. Tells me everything is gonna be alright. Jesus set me free. I hope he set you free.